Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We are so excited to facilitate this class on transitioning your home to zero waste. We're just going to give people a minute or two to join. Thanks everyone for being on time and making time tonight for this topic. So this class tonight, I'm going to facilitate it. My name is Amber Hockadall. I'm the CEO and founder of Tare Market. Tare Market is a zero waste shop. It's the first one in Minnesota. And our mission is to fight climate change by providing people with access to plastic-free and package-free goods. One of the pillars of our mission is to provide free education for people so that everyone, everywhere can live a little bit more sustainably. So I'm really excited for this class. We've only done one other virtual class during the pandemic, so please excuse any technical difficulties. We want to make this as open and as useful for you as possible. So please write any questions that you have in the chat, and we will do the best we can to answer them at the end of the presentation. So I just want to make sure that everyone can see my screen okay. And Danae, our social media coordinator, is on the call. So Danae, if you could just let me know if everything seems to be working fine.
Yes, everything looks good. I just have a question for everyone joining. Are the chats popping up? We have one question or one statement in there about jumping on the class, and we'll be starting in a couple minutes. The chat button is right next to the little people icon.
Perfect. So yeah, so you can go ahead and write any questions that you have in the chat box. So we'll go ahead and get started. And so this is what we'll cover tonight in our agenda. We'll talk about what is zero waste, the definition, as well as some useful and realistic explanations. Why is it important to live more sustainably in the first place? How to conduct a waste audit in your home, steps to achieving zero waste in your home, and then we'll have time at the end for a question and answer. Okay, just trying to move through my slides here. Perfect. Okay, so again, my name is Amber Hockadall, and I am the CEO and founder of Tare Market. I grew up in California, and my family and I spent a lot of time outside. We traveled throughout the country together, and I always grew up thinking of myself as an environmentalist, and eventually went to school to study environmental science, and then went on to get a master's in conservation biology. This is my research project, studying elephants in Africa. That's a picture of me conducting my master's thesis in the middle of the slide. And I thought I was doing everything I could to live more sustainably. I grew up thinking recycling was really the answer to our environmental crisis. But it wasn't really until I learned through a class at the Seward Community Co-op here in town that every plastic toothbrush I'd ever used was sitting in a landfill, not decomposing. That the average lifespan of a plastic bag is 12 minutes. But it takes over 1,000 years to decompose, and then it breaks down into microplastics, which infiltrate our air, water, and soil. And I realized I had never really thought about my waste and what happens to my waste once it leaves my home, and that there had been this huge disconnect between thinking I was living as sustainably as possible, but then missing this whole part of the equation, which was waste. And so thanks to the person on the right and the person on the left on this slide, I went down a very long YouTube black hole of learning about sustainability and trash and zero waste. So the person wearing all of his trash in the photo is Rob Greenfield. He has a YouTube channel and a wonderful blog, and he talks about the average American and how much trash we consume and really what happens to our waste, and how there's this big disconnect between what we use and consume and where it comes from, and then where it goes at the end of its life. And then the woman featured in the photo is Lauren Singer, and she talks a lot in her TED Talk and on her YouTube channel about living a waste-free life and how she does that in New York City. And so I really learned a lot from these two people, and it got me thinking about, well, what could I do to live more sustainably? And so I started going zero waste in my own home, and then eventually I started a blog called zerowasted.net. Helping other people live more sustainably. And then eventually I started Tare Market, which was the first zero waste store in Minnesota. And in my journey, I learned that sustainable living looks very different to everyone, depending on your time and your energy and your budget. So my journey might be different than your journey, but hopefully you'll get something out of this presentation that you feel like you could use in your life to help make baby steps to live a little bit more sustainably. So let's talk about what zero waste is. On the slide here, you can see this definition from the Zero Waste International Alliance, which is helpful but very wordy. So I'd love to show this visual, which describes these different economies that are present. So the linear economy, you take, you make, you use it, it ends up as waste. The recycling economy, which is really where we fall in the United States, is we take, we make, we use, we recycle, because recycling is very important here. And then it eventually becomes waste. A circular economy is this idea that you take, you make, you use it, you recycle it, you return it, you repair it, you recycle it, you reuse it, etc. And you get in this wonderful closed loop where you don't have any waste associated with any of your purchases. So that's really what we're striving for in the zero waste lifestyle. Zero waste can mean trash, as you see in the picture here, showing a trash can, but it could also mean other things as well, like your recycling, because as we'll talk about more in this presentation, recycling has a very large environmental footprint. So it's also thinking about your recycling and how you can decrease your carbon footprint by not even having anything to put in your recycling bin as well. So let's talk a little bit about what we throw away in the United States. I think that's a really important thing to kind of anchor us in what we're talking about here and the magnitude of our problem as a society with waste. So the average American throws away 4.9 pounds of trash per person per day. And that's according to the Environmental Protection Agency data from 2018. So if you think about your house, you think about yourself, maybe you have a partner, husband or wife, maybe you have a child or two or three, and you think about how much waste you create and how much waste then in turn your family creates. And then you think about your block, then you think about your city or your town, then you think about your state. It is just a massive amount of trash that is thrown away every single day. Depending on where you live, you might have a landfill. Here in the Twin Cities, we also have an incinerator. The Hennepin Energy Recovery Center is located in downtown Minneapolis, and that's where most of our trash gets sent. So most of our trash gets burned. So it's really important also to think about where you live and what happens to your trash, because there's different environmental ramifications of if your trash is burned, if your trash goes in a landfill, etc. But we'll focus on the for this presentation on the amount of trash, 4.9 pounds of trash per person per day statistic. It's also important to recognize that 1.3 pounds of recycling per person per day is actually thrown away as trash. So that might be recycling that you put in your recycling bin thinking it will actually be recycled. However, it actually does end up as trash, or it's recycling that gets put in the trash in the first place. It doesn't get put in the recycling bin. So again, think about your household, magnify that by your block and then your town. That is a lot per person per day. It's also important to note that in landfills, 25% of the waste that's located there is actually considered organic material. So that's a material that if it was put in, let's say, a backyard compost bin, it would actually decompose over time, creating nutrient-dense soil that we could use to grow food, for example. You could have a vegetable garden in your backyard. You could donate to a community garden. It would have a use. However, when food is thrown away in a landfill setting, it becomes encapsulated and it doesn't have the right conditions, air, water, and soil in order to actually biodegrade. So instead, what happens is that organic waste becomes packed down in a landfill, and it actually off-gases methane and carbon dioxide, which are two greenhouse gases. So when organic material is actually put into a landfill setting, it actually has a really large accumulative footprint in terms of greenhouse gases. So it's really important when you're thinking about what you're throwing away that you're also thinking about what food am I throwing away? Even if you think, oh, it's an apple core, it'll decompose. It actually won't if your trash is being sent to a landfill. So that's an important fact to keep in mind. And then 33% of all food produced ends up in the landfill before it's being consumed or prepared. The reason I think that's an important statistic is I want you to think about the carbon footprint associated with producing food. The carbon footprint, the materials, the resources, the human energy, when you grow food and then you transport it to a grocery store, and then you as the consumer spend your money at that grocery store, you put it in a bag, you bring it home, it ends up in your refrigerator, which obviously uses electricity. Everything in that system has its own footprint. And when that food ends up just being wasted and being put into the landfill, it just shows the inefficiency of our food system here in the United States and how important it is to try to purchase less food, to really meal plan, to really think about what you need to purchase in terms of your food so that you're not wasting the resources, as well as you're not wasting your money on food that you are not consuming. So why is it important to live more sustainably? This might seem obvious to you, but there are some people in your life who are probably not as motivated as you to live more sustainably and might need some convincing. So it's always important to think about, why do I want to do this? If zero waste was quote unquote easy, which it does get over time, everyone would live this way, but it's intimidating and it's hard at first to really get the behaviors down and kind of know, okay, how do I tear my jar at the bulk section? Or where do I find bread plastic free? But once you start to learn those tips and tricks, it's really quite easy. But as a global society, it is so important that we do everything we can to live more sustainably. I don't think it is any surprise to anyone here that the climate crisis is real and it's accelerating at a very rapid pace. So any little thing you can do to take a positive step in the right direction of living a little bit more green is just awesome and should be really rewarded. So but don't be too hard on yourself if you're like, okay, I'm only going to be able to make one zero waste swap all year, and instead of buying my carrots in a plastic bag at the grocery store, I'm going to bring my own bag and I'm going to get carrots plastic free. That is awesome, and reward yourself for that. It is all about baby steps. But as we continue to consume and we have more plastics, for example, in our lives, and we're finding more microplastics that are infiltrating our air, water, and soil, it is so important that we start to make those steps to really make sure we leave this world better for the next generation, because the way we're heading now is just not going to continue to work for future generations. So anything we can do to live more sustainably is super important. So this icon probably looks really familiar to everyone. Reduce, reuse, and recycle is a really popular thing here in the United States. Along the way, reduce and reuse really kind of got lost, and we started focusing just on recycling. So the hard truth of the recycling system is it's a very imperfect system. Plastics, for example, mostly do not end up being recycled, even when they're put in the recycle bin. 91% of plastics currently end up in the landfill as waste. Previously, China accepted most of our recycling. So the United States used to spend a lot of resources to ship all of our recycling to China. And then eventually China just said, we don't want this anymore, because the cost wasn't worth it to them to actually recycle products. Instead, it became more affordable for us to to manufacture new products as opposed to recycle products. And so it's become very apparent that we have some huge issues in our recycling system. Recycling can be a tool in the zero waste world. you will probably encounter things in your life that are made of plastics, for example, that you can't really substitute, for example, medical supplies. So in some ways you need to use things like that, but it is really important that everyone focuses on reduction and reusing what we can instead of recycling as our environmental answer. And we'll talk more about reduce and reusing as the presentation goes on. It is important to note that plastics can be recycled a certain amount of times, but they are downcycled each time. So the fibers, the chemical composition of a plastic water bottle, for example, can only be broken down maybe twice before it ends up as waste. Aluminum can be recycled an infinite amount of times, as well as glass. So if it ends up in a recycling center that can accommodate that, because some recycling centers cannot, then it's a much more environmentally appropriate product because we can reuse it time and time again. And paper, it's about 8 to 10 times paper is recycled before the fibers get too short, and that too ends up as waste. So just to give everyone some context about the recycling system and what can actually be recycled and what cannot. So part of the zero waste movement is practicing the 5 R's. The 5 R's were really pioneered by Bea Johnson, who started the zero waste movement really in the United States. It's been popular in the UK for a long time, but it really didn't take hold here until much more recently. So in her book, The Zero Waste Home, which I would definitely recommend anyone see if they can borrow from a friend or get from your local library, she focuses on the 5 R's, which are refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. I love this visual. I think it's great. Refusing, I think it can be very easy if you lived in a bubble to live a zero waste lifestyle. But the truth of the matter is that when you go out and you live your life as most of us do, waste naturally comes into your home, or you find ways, there are ways that waste kind of creeps into your home. And so refusing is just as simple as like when you go out to an event, let's say you have a conference, you just say like, no, I don't need the free swag bag, please. Or if you're out at a restaurant, like, oh, I'll take a glass of water, no straw. So it's just thinking about refusing things that you don't actually need. And that's a great indicator to people as well, the conference organizer or the waitress or the manager of the restaurant, that, oh, maybe we should think twice before offering these things because people really don't seem to need them. And that is one really good, useful tool. And then reduce, that kind of speaks to itself, but that's really just reducing the amount of waste, reducing the amount of consumption that you have, thinking about being a little bit more minimalistic and a little bit more selective about what you actually do bring into your home. So for example, if your passion is shopping and you love to go thrift shopping, that's fun for you. Instead of going thrift shopping every week like you normally do, you could say, okay, this is a treat. I'm going to do this once a month. So it's just about thinking about doing things a little bit more sporadically, a little bit differently, and being a little bit more strategic. Reuse. So taking that original peanut butter jar that you have and filling up with bulk beans at the market, or taking a glass vase and doing something creative with an art project. So it's thinking creatively about ways you can give things a second life. And then she does have recycle on her pyramid, which again, recycling can be a tool, but it definitely is low on the pyramid. So it should be something that you don't really rely on as you move forward in the zero waste movement and try to move your home towards zero waste. And then rot is the very last one. I would argue that should be higher up, and rot really means composting. So whether that be having a backyard compost bin or trying to put or implement an organics program in your community where you can have more of an industrial compost where you can throw more things. I would argue that in addition to these 5 R's, there are some crucial things here that she is missing. So I would add to her pyramid rethink, which is really thinking about not just the downstream of your products and your lifestyle, but the upstream. So for example, if you're purchasing a product, where was that product made? Who made it? What materials were it made of? Were the people who made it paid a fair wage and treated with respect? So I would think about the whole life cycle, for example, of a product holistically when I'm making decisions. I apologize if you can hear my baby screaming in the background. It's nighttime or it's bedtime and she's getting ready to go to bed. So, hopefully sweet dreams for her, but I apologize if you can hear her in the background. And then the next thing I would consider adding to this pyramid is repair. So instead of purchasing something that's single use, consider purchasing something that has a longer lifespan and that could be repaired over time. Locally, there are some great resources if you have a vacuum that needs to be repaired, or you have a sewing machine, something mechanical. There are some wonderful organizations here in the Twin Cities that will repair things for free just to keep them out of the landfill. So I would definitely suggest if you have anything that you can repair over time, you consider going that route. Even something as simple as like mending a pair of jeans that has a hole in it is a great way to keep it out of the landfill and keep using a wonderful product that you love. And then the last thing I would say is revolution. So we vote with our dollars with everything we purchase. And so by making strategic decisions that are informed by your values and your moral code, you can really affect change. So for example, if you have a company that you really like a certain product, but the product comes wrapped in plastic and you think it could be done differently, you could speak with your dollars by not purchasing that product and also by communicating with that company, hey, I love your product, but it's wrapped in plastic and I'm trying to go zero waste because it's important to me to preserve the environment for future generations. Would you ever consider changing to a compostable package or going package free? And by doing that, you're telling that company, you're telling that maker or that vendor or that business that you really care about the environment and you're willing to put your dollars to the test. And that will hopefully affect greater change and make companies really do the work to design better products that are better for the environment. So if you're looking to go zero waste in your home, one thing I would recommend doing is a waste audit. There is a link at the very bottom of this page. I will also send out a follow-up email with a link to a worksheet that can guide you through that process. It's really important to know where you start before you start making big changes in your life. So what I recommend doing is live your life normally for a week. Don't change anything. And then go through your house room by room and weigh or count every item in your trash and in your recycle bin and record that item on our complimentary trash audit worksheet. And by doing that, you'll be able to physically see and record. In this room, I had 4 pounds of food waste. And in this room, I had 20 soda cans or whatever it is. And that way you can really catalog and see where you're at now. And then I would identify some swaps that you could make that would work for your lifestyle. So again, we want going zero waste to work for you and your lifestyle and your budget and your family situation. So what works for me wouldn't work necessarily for you, but what worked for me was to make easy swaps, the low-hanging fruit, and then get more complex as time went on. So for example, I used Google to find out if there was any alternative to plastic floss when I was doing my trash audit, because I found that in my bathroom, I had a ton of plastic floss that was in my trash and I didn't know of any alternative products. So I just Google it. Is there an alternative to plastic floss? And I found that there was a compostable version of floss made by a woman-owned business in Maine. And I immediately purchased it and have been using it ever since. I love it. It's just like standard floss, but I can put it in my backyard bin and it'll decompose in 6 months. And it comes in a glass container and I'm supporting a woman-owned business. So I just felt like that was a win-win-win all over the place. So as you're doing your trash audit, I'd recommend having Google by your side. Also, the Tare Market website has a lot of different products for easy swaps that I'd recommend checking out as well. But be strategic and pick 1 or 2 items that you would like to try out, that you'd like to swap out. And then after about 26, 28 days, that's when behavioral change really takes effect. I would say repeat. So pick another 1 or 2 items, maybe pick another 1 or 2 items a month or 2 after that. And before you know it, you'll be making your way through your house. And then it's always fun to revisit like a year later and do the waste audit again and see if you've what kind of progress you've made, and reward yourself for the progress you have, because that's really important to also reward yourself through this process. So when I did this in my kitchen, I realized that about 80% of my waste was actually packaging from food. So I started looking at resources about how to go zero waste grocery shopping, how to shop the bulk section. I joined a community supported agriculture program, which is where I got fresh produce from the farmer, from a farmer not too far away from the Twin Cities. And so I could eliminate plastic packaging in relation to vegetables. And after making just a few small changes, bringing my own produce bags to the grocery store, and joining my CSA, this was all of the waste in my trash can in my kitchen after 30 days. So I think this picture is testament to, like, you can put in like simple steps and it will make a huge difference. So I went from pounds and pounds and having a very large, like 13-gallon trash can that was basically full every week with just 2 people, to having a small trash can that barely gets full every week. And you can see the waste after a month is mostly plastic waste, still from food packaging. So there were some things that I just either couldn't get plastic free, or my family members, aka my husband, felt like it was really necessary to buy and we couldn't find an alternative. And that's part of going zero waste, is you have to be accommodating of the other people in your household. You don't want to put on too much pressure and scare them away. But this is just testament that small changes can make a really large difference in your life. So going plastic free is a really important pillar of the zero waste movement. As I've kind of mentioned already, plastic isn't recyclable. 91% of plastics, again, that get put in the recycling end up as waste. And that's really attributed towards the fact that it is more expensive to recycle plastic than it is to manufacture new plastic. It is so cheap to manufacture, there's just not any economics behind the plastic recycling system. Plastic does break down into small microplastics, which end up in our air, water, and soil. And the long-term ramifications of us consuming plastic in fish, consuming plastic in our drinking water, are not yet known. So it's really important that you try your best to find alternative products that are plastic-free when possible. Some great alternative products might come in natural fibers, specifically clothes. A lot of plastic is actually in, like, different kinds of athleisure wear, different kinds of clothes. So if you can buy cotton, if you can buy linen, those are great alternative fibers to a plastic-based fiber for your clothes. Aluminum and glass, as I mentioned, they're recyclable an infinite amount of times. So depending on your recycling system and where you're located, if you can get something in glass versus getting something in plastic, that's a much more environmentally friendly option. And again, as I've mentioned, paper, it can be recycled about 8 to 10 times before it ends up as waste. And aluminum, again, is infinitely recyclable as well. So going plastic free is a great kind of ethos to the zero waste lifestyle. So as I mentioned, for myself, I found a lot of benefit in really focusing on how to practice zero waste grocery shopping. And I hear from most people, that's where they struggle the most as well, because everyone needs to eat food. Everyone's got a family situation where they're buying food or cooking food for someone, whether it be themselves, your kids, etc. So I think what's really important is you think about what's going to, again, work for you and your lifestyle. For me, I live in an area where I have a local kind of mom and pop grocery store in my neighborhood. And I love that I can walk there and or ride my bike there, and I can go grocery shopping. It's really easy. It's really convenient. But it doesn't have a lot of plastic-free options. It has a very, very small bulk section, which is basically candy. And it has some produce, but not a lot. So what I decided to do was seek out an alternative grocery store that I would visit about once a month. And I would do a larger shopping, take a larger shopping trip there. And I would get all of my plastic-free bulk ingredients that are shelf stable that I could have for the whole month, for example. So that for me was Lake Winds Co-op in Richfield. And so once a month I go there, and that's what I do. I do like a larger shop. So I would recommend finding a place in your area where you can shop a little bit more sustainably. Bring your own bags jars, egg cartons, etc. So when you get to that co-op or that new grocery store for you, I would say the first time, just walk around, see what resources they have, and kind of make a plan about what you need to bring to that space to make it as zero waste as possible, because every place is a little different. So for example, at Lake Winds Co-op, they do have loose eggs, and you can bring your own egg carton and you can get eggs there, which are just about 10 cents for a dozen more expensive than if you got the local organic eggs. And these are local and organic as well. So it's really worth to me the 10 cents to pay to bring my own egg carton. But every space is a little bit different. So I recommend when you go the first time to just really see what resources that space has for you. Definitely ask for help. People who work in the grocery store, convenience store world, they would much rather have you ask them how to do something than not be certain, and then like not be confident and leave something on the shelf, like hidden behind a bottle because you don't want to go to checkout because you're afraid you did it wrong. People are there to help you, especially in kind of the co-op and eco-friendly natural food store world. People want to be asked for help. So please ask for help. And that can be really handy because sometimes if you're bringing your own containers and you need to tare them, sometimes that tare station where you would put your jar to weigh your container might be at checkout, or it might be at customer service. It might be located in the bulk aisle. So just asking some basic questions about where the stuff is located. Definitely, as I mentioned, purchase glass or items in paper, aluminum, if you can, as opposed to plastic. That alone will make a big difference in your carbon footprint. And then if you can, utilize the bakery and the salad bar instead of buying things in plastic. So for example, at Lake Winds Co-op, they have a whole section that is bread delivered from a local baker, and you can bring your own reusable produce bag and take a loaf of bread and put it in your produce bag, and you can walk away without any packaging. And that's really great. So I definitely recommend looking at those sections in your store. And then the other part of this is learning how to store your food properly. So of course, once you get back from your grocery shopping experience, to make sure that you're storing your greens in water or in a damp tea towel, making sure you wrap that bread in beeswax paper or another kind of preserving paper so that it doesn't go stale, so that you have a chance to actually consume it and enjoy it. So those are kind of my tips for how to get started with zero waste grocery shopping. If you'd like to see some concrete tools about like what to bring, how to tare your container, I linked a YouTube video at the bottom of this slide that I will send out also in the follow-up email so that you can get some more information about how to actually do that, because I know that can be a little intimidating as well. So some other things to think about when you're thinking about going zero waste. So yes, it's about food. Yes, it's about doing waste audits and things like that. But there's also a lot of other areas in the home where you can make improvements. So minimizing and simplifying is just one really great thing to keep in mind. Do you actually need to buy that item? Is it really, really important to you? And thinking about not only what happens when I take the item home, but if I do have to throw that item away, where does that go? What does that look like? What is that item made out of? How long will it take to decompose, etc.? And simplifying, if you could just buy less, that alone, reducing your consumerism, will be a huge pro on the environment. We just put such a strain on our environmental resources every time we buy something that just thinking about, do I really need this? Or is this really important to me? Is this really going to add that much value? Is a great step in your zero waste journey. Buying secondhand is really awesome. So if you do need something, you can maybe check your local thrift store if it's an item of clothing or a piece of furniture. Facebook Marketplace is a great resource that's basically international, so you can buy secondhand on there. And then the local Buy Nothing community in Minneapolis is really great. So if you haven't joined a Buy Nothing group, I would highly recommend that. That's BUY, Buy Nothing. And you find groups based off of your neighborhood, and then you can you can barter and share stuff. And so you're like becomes a sharing economy. So thinking about how to minimize and simplify and move in that direction is a wonderful way to move towards zero waste. Eating more sustainably, as I've mentioned, everyone eats. So it's really important that if you can take any measures to eat a little bit more sustainably, that you do so. It'll really help reduce your carbon footprint. Here in Minnesota, it's really hard to eat seasonally because we have such extreme weather temperatures, but everyone can just do what they can. So whether that be you go to the grocery store and you buy the local tomatoes, or you go to the farmer's market, or you get a CSA, community supported agriculture again, something like that. Any of those steps would be great ways to reduce your carbon footprint. Organic when possible. Fertilizers, pesticides, chemicals, they're leaving a lasting impact on the soil and in the local groundwater and water streams. So really trying to eat organic when possible. And then to eat less meat, whether that be meatless Mondays or going totally vegetarian or vegan, can really, really help. As probably a lot of people here know, meat and the factory farming industry puts a huge strain on our environmental infrastructure. And so just even decreasing the amount of meat you eat once a week to just be vegetables or grains or some alternative is really important. And then fighting food waste is another really great thing you can do. I recommend meal planning. So there's an app called Google Keep, which I really like. It allows multiple people to add and edit notes. So for example, if there's 3 of you in your household and everyone likes to be involved in cooking or shopping, or one person wants to cook and another person wants to shop, it's a great tool because you can all edit the same document. And then when someone is at the grocery store, all they have to do is pull up the app. They know what they need. Makes it really easy. There's no guessing involved. Like, did I have eggs? I can't remember. And then check your fridge before you go to the grocery store. So is there a head of broccoli that's hidden in your vegetable drawer that you need to use? Or is there something else that you need to use up first before you need to buy something new? And really getting creative with the food you do have. So if you do have some bananas that are going brown, could you make banana bread or throw them in a smoothie? Or if you have something else that needs to get used that you don't know how to use, maybe check out Pinterest and type in there like wilty kale and see what comes up. And you'll probably get a recipe for an egg bake. Egg bakes are great. So really just thinking creatively about food. And that way you're diverting that food from ending up in the landfill, and you're finding a good use for that food as well, which is really the whole point. So some areas where people have really struggled that we've really tried to meet people where they're at and provide some resources at Tare Market are the bulk cleaning products and liquid foods. We heard from a lot of people that no matter where they shop, they couldn't find bulk cleaning products that work for them. So at Tare Market, we really try to expand to carry things that our local co-ops don't carry. And that includes an extensive cleaning section with things like dishwashing powder, all-purpose cleaner, laundry pods, things that really people use in their everyday lives. So that zero waste isn't just something you do for fun, or it isn't just something you do to look good on Instagram, but it's actually something you could do in all aspects of your life and actually make a really good positive impact. And liquid foods, things like canola oil, vegetable oil, olive oil. We try to also provide a really good section of oils and vinegars to meet customers where they're at. We carry 130 bulk and shelf-stable dry goods, things like coffee and tea and spices, because those are also areas where people have said, I go to the bulk section at Cup Foods or Safeway or Rainbow Foods, and they just have like 20 kinds of candy. And like, while candy's great, and I love chocolate, don't get me wrong, you can't live on chocolate. Well, you probably could live on chocolate, but you need to have a more robust selection in order to satisfy your everyday needs. So we have 130 items, everything from dried fruit to granola to oats to baking goods, to really try to make sustainable living something you can do in your everyday life, and not just consume chocolate. And then we have also tried to really swap out items that people use on their everyday basis, like toothpaste, shampoo bars, so that we have found more sustainable versions of products that are better for people, the planet, and the environment, and are actually great products. We try to really support a lot of women makers, BIPOC vendors, a lot of really local people to Minnesota for those items. And we carry some great items on our website to help you in your journey to just live a little bit more sustainably. So as a thank you for attending this class, I'd love to offer you a coupon, which I will also send out in the follow-up email, but for $5 off a purchase of 25 or more at taremarket.com or in the store. That's valid for the next month. So definitely think about what tools you need to live a little bit more green. If you are not interested in any tools, that's great. There are so many things that you can use in your everyday life and that probably exist in your home in order to go zero waste. Zero waste doesn't require an upfront investment. All you really need is the knowledge of what is going to work better for you and to start implementing that. It can be as simple as using a pillowcase for a bulk bag, for example, instead of going out and buy something new. But if there is something that speaks to you, that resonates with you, we'd love it if you shop local and shop small. We appreciate every order that comes through the door. It helps us achieve our goals of spreading sustainable living and making it accessible to everyone. So with that being said, I'd love to open it up to any questions. I can turn it over to Danae first if you have seen any questions in the chat that you think we should tackle first. But if you haven't had a chance to check out the chat and you do want to put a question in there, feel free to put one in there now, and Danae will kind of moderate the Q&A and make sure we get to it. So Danae, are there any questions?
Yes, we just got a really good one in. All of the questions have been great. Stephanie says, going green is in, which is awesome, but how do you identify a genuine green product versus those who are just capitalizing or greenwashing? I'm seeing so many targeted ads for green products, but a lot of them seem sketchy.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I agree. Green is like in, it's the new trendy thing. I would say it's important to do your research on each company, which I know can sound time intensive and exhausting, but it's just kind of what you need to do. So what I would look for is, like, let's say, for example, you see a targeted ad for a bamboo toothbrush. I would go to that company's website from the ad, and I would look at, do they have sustainability mentioned on their website? Are they certified with anything that seems recognizable to you? So are they, for example, like FSC certified, which certifies that the wood has been sustainably harvested? Does the maker have a commitment to maybe working towards certain environmental goals? Are they a B Corp, for example, so a company that gives back? So I would sit and do the research and make sure that the website and the information you can find does align with what they are saying. I think I got targeted for a toothbrush. That's kind of why I brought it up a few weeks ago, only to find out it was shipped in a plastic container. And just once I looked into the company, it just didn't seem to be quite right. Like, I just didn't have a good feeling. There was no certifications. There was nothing about sustainability really in the meat of the website. So I made the decision. I was like, well, this doesn't feel right to me. I don't think this is actually a legit company trying to do good. I think it's a company trying to capitalize on this. So I would say just do your research. If you are struggling with that, because that takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, that is actually one of the reasons I started Tare Market, excuse me, was to provide a platform with a curated list of items that were already vetted, so that people could just go in, select items that would work for them, and then know they were actually sustainably made. Excuse me.
I'd like to get to this question from before. Dana K is asking, why is it that 91% of recycling isn't recycled? Is it because we outsourced our recycling to China and now they don't do it anymore?
Yes.
Yeah, if you need a breath.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. I got a tickle in my throat. The answer is yes. So the United States used to ship, oh my goodness, I sound like an old lady all of a sudden. No offense to any old ladies out there. So the United States used to ship almost all of our recycling to China, and China would accept it, and then usually it would end up in China in the trash somewhere. It wouldn't actually get recycled. So our recycling system was very broken. Once we stopped sending all of our recycling to China, it became apparent that there was no economic benefit to spending the money to actually recycle plastic. Instead, it was cheaper. Excuse me. It was cheaper to make new plastic than it was to recycle old plastic. So that is why so much of our recycling, excuse me, ends up as waste. So so it's really unfortunate, but that is why.
We just take a drink of water.
I'm sorry, that was like really strange.
We just got another exciting question in from Kaylee. If you are comfortable sharing, what are the next big goals for Tare Market? Any new products you're hoping to carry, expansion, etc.? Thanks for everything you do.
Oh, that's a really nice question. Yeah, we're always looking for new products. So we are always changing based off of what customers say they need to live more sustainably. So if you are ever looking at an area of your home and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot find an alternative product for X, always reach out to us and just be like, hey, I'm looking for this. And I can let you know if we have it in store, or if not, I'll be like, that's a really great idea. We should consider carrying that, because probably if you're one person who could use it, there are other people who could probably use it as well. So we're always bringing in new products. Some of our products are things like dried blueberries. It's a brand new product in the store that a lot of people have asked for. Blueberries are something traditionally come in plastic. So dried blueberries, we're able to find them in bulk. So now we have those in the store. I will say currently they are out of stock, and we're hoping to get some in the second week of October. So if you want to come to the store soon for dried blueberries, please wait, or please call us before you come to see if we got them in stock. And then there are things like, I'm trying to think of good products, like a pet shampoo bar for dogs, where people have said, traditionally dog shampoo comes in plastic. I want my pet to be zero waste too, as much as possible. So we worked with a local woman who makes wonderful products, Kim from Sebesta Apothecary, who makes an awesome dog shampoo bar. So we're always bringing new products based off of customer feedback and customer demand. Exciting things for Tare Market are we are looking for a second location in Northeast Minneapolis. We're hoping to just bring more sustainable living opportunities to more people. We also were able to recently hire an education outreach coordinator, which is really exciting. So we'll be out in the community more, tabling, teaching people about zero waste, talking to people about the mission of the company. So we're going to be doing everything from being at creek cleanups and supporting those efforts to being at bigger festivals and fairs to try to just reach more people. So I'm also really excited about that education component as well.
Dana has another question here. Do you carry brooms/dustpans that are sustainable? I've been having the hardest time finding one that isn't plastic.
I hear you. I totally hear you. And that is something we probably should carry. To be honest, you can see the Tare Market space behind me. If you haven't been to the physical store in person, this is what it looks like. It's 1,000 square feet. It's very small. We try to put as much in there as we can. We actually have 768 different products in our store crammed in there. So there's a lot in there for you to look through. But things like brushes, bigger brushes, like a dustpan and a broom, I just take up a lot of space. So I'm going to say that is an awesome customer request, and I'm going to try to find a way to get it in the store. Until we do, a local resource to look to see if they would have it would be the Foundry Home Goods, which is located in Minneapolis. They're a wonderful plastic-free space. And they have really high quality products from mostly in Europe. But they do have, I think they might have brooms. So that would be a great place to look. So, but I'm going to write that down as a customer request. I'm going to try to bring it in because I actually would like a plastic-free broom too. That would be great. Thanks for the question.
I think up to this point, all of the questions have been answered. Feel free to write any in now if those have spurred any additional questions, and we can get to those.
And we did get some questions via social media before the class started. So I'll just spend a few minutes answering those. And then if anything else came up for anyone, then please ask. So one of the questions we got was, how do you not get overwhelmed, and where do you start for going zero waste? So it's really easy to feel overwhelmed because I think there's this urgency, and you kind of want to do everything at once. But in order to really make this lifestyle work for you, I think it's really important to take things slowly and strategically, and think about things in a way that makes sense for you. So, for example, when I started going zero waste, I looked at every room in my house individually, and I did it over time. So that waste audit, I picked the kitchen first, then I did my office, then I did my bathroom. And I just made sure that I was going through each room, giving myself time to make swaps that would actually work with my lifestyle. That way, it's also easier to get your family on board or anyone else that you live with, because it can be hard if you're really motivated to go zero waste, but maybe your partner isn't. And all of a sudden you're like, you can't buy that in plastic anymore, or you can't use that deodorant anymore. And they're like, I've always used this deodorant. Like, why all of a sudden now I can't use it? But if you take time and explain it to them and or get them involved and go on the journey with you, then it's a lot easier, and it's a lot, you get a lot more buy-in and a lot more behavior stick. So I would just recommend taking it room by room, kind of product by product, and really think about things that will work for you. I would also think about where you're going to get the most return for your investment. So if you go through your trash and you realize that you have a lot of food waste, then it might make sense to think about, okay, how can I tackle food waste? Am I buying too much food? So can I maybe do a meal plan before I go? And then if that meal plan, you do another waste audit 6 months down the road, and all of a sudden you have a third of what you used to have, that's awesome. So picking strategically things that you'll get kind of the most bang for your buck, I think is great. Is a great way to get started. I think that was the two questions we had from Instagram.
We have another question here from Thomas. Since becoming a parent, what tips have you come up with for buying stuff for kids, whether it's food, snacks, toys, clothing, etc.?
Yeah, Thomas, you should have my phone number. We can chat, as there is a lot of resources to share. First, I from when I was pregnant, basically, I just reached into my community and said, I would love to have as many secondhand things as possible. And I had an amazing amount of friends who already had their kids and said, I'm looking to get rid of my crib. I'm looking to get rid of my bouncy chair. And I just took everything that I thought I would need. And that really helped start me off successfully. I decided a cloth diaper, which I know isn't for everyone, but once, like everything else, you incorporate it into your routine, it becomes second nature. It's really easy. And I saved a lot of diapers from being put in the landfill that way. There's also a local cloth diapering service called Do Good Diapers. If you're not interested in doing cloth diapers on your own, you can actually have them come pick them up every week and drop off a clean set. It's really great. I would recommend looking locally on Facebook Marketplace, or sometimes there's other local groups like Minnesota Parent Swap or Toy Swap, I think is another one, where people will swap out items like toys and clothes and things like that. And that way you're not having to purchase new, you're purchasing secondhand, or you're actually swapping, so there's no money involved. The Minneapolis Toy Library is an amazing resource. I know that's really local, so if there are people here from other communities, you could see if there's one in your neighborhood. But that's a library, but for toys. So for here in the Minneapolis Toy Library is 0 to 5 years. Your 5-year-old gets a library card. They go to the toy library and they get to pick out 5 new toys, and then they bring them back within 2 weeks and they can exchange them for 5 new toys. So it's just, I think about finding resources in your community that will help you on this journey. And if you're looking for anything specific that you can't find secondhand, I would recommend trying to buy it plastic free if possible. So whether that be like a wooden set of toys, something plastic free, if you can buy it locally, that's great. Just kind of anything you can do to decrease the carbon footprint of shipping and any kind of waste associated with your product purchase. For food, I know kids love a lot of different kinds of like easy grab and go snacks, but again, it's just about setting everyone up for your success. So for example, with my daughter, she loves fruit. Fruit is almost always plastic free if you bring your own produce bags. So we'll get a cantaloupe from the farmer's market. We'll get some apples from the farmer's market. Those are great. She loves those snacks. You can get things like peanut butter from the bulk section if your co-op has a local, if your local co-op has a grinder. We carry at Tare Market fig bars, which my daughter loves. So it's also just about finding a store that resonates with you in terms of food and snacks, so that they can still be easy for you. You're not having to like make all your own stuff, but it is a more environmentally friendly option.
Stephanie has another great question here. I've ordered online from Tare before, and I know you reuse boxes and materials. Is there anything else you guys do that makes shipping more sustainable?
Yeah, so in addition to reusing all the boxes and materials, all the shipping supplies, we do work with a wonderful organization called Seed the Change, which we pay for a tree to be planted for every single product purchased online. And that Seed the Change works with local communities to reforest areas that have been devastated by habitat loss. So right now they have projects in Ethiopia, Madagascar, and they're a wonderful organization. So we pay for a tree for every product, and that's one thing that we're really trying to do to offset the carbon footprint of shipping, because we hear from a lot of people that they want to live more sustainably, but they don't have a resource like Tare Market in their neighborhood or in their state even. So where can they find these products without having to buy them on Amazon, where maybe your dental lace, compostable dental floss comes in a huge box? So we try to say, okay, you can definitely purchase items through us, and we will offset the carbon by planting a tree. And the other thing I love about Seed the Change is it works with local communities to reforest different areas. So it's not a foreign group coming in and planting all the trees and leaving. It's locals who take ownership of that project, who are planting those trees, growing those trees, planting those trees, and then living in that area and seeing the benefit of those trees in their neighborhood. So that's what's the thing I'm most proud of about our online shop.
Those are all of the questions. I think we are up to date to this point.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone who came. Thank you. I hope it was beneficial, and I hope you feel motivated. I'm going to follow up with some resources, including the coupon. But if anyone has any more questions, you can just email me at hello@taremarket.com, and I will do my best to answer them for you. And I hope that we get to see you in the store or at another virtual event sometime in the future. So thanks everyone for joining. Have a great evening, everyone.